should do that when you go in.
That's crazy.
Yo, BlackGod, man, I'm sending you the request. We trying to get it going, man. It's gonna pop. All right, we still trying to get it, man. Thanks for holding it down. We're gonna get this started in a minute, man. Ancestors are with us. Oh, we got him. We in the building. Oh, we in the building. Peace,
Yo,
peace.
the
Peace,
queen had to coach me through it. You know that, right?
Who coached you through it?
The queen FaceTime, then coached me through it.
Ah,
I got support.
Sister. Thanks a lot, sister, for that shout out. Let's get it going, man. I'm Cory. I'm one of the co-founders of H.O.L.A and the Healing Justice Organizer. H.O.L.A is an organization I do non-tradition human and healing center youth organizing, founded inside a prison and inside of New York State prisons. It really stand on developing the leadership of young people in a grassroots, non-traditional manner. And we happy to be here to be having another discussion on our documentary, We Came to Heal. Shout out to all of the YLC people, our whole legacy, everybody for all of the stories, the struggles, the tears, all of the circles we led to get to, and analysis we did to get to that place. So much beautiful work in that. And we're going to have another conversation tonight about the documentary, but also just about the legacy and about healing and about, you know, what our peoples came to do. And
That's right.
particularly this topic here tonight is really important because we got a special guest and we really want to talk about the intergenerational relationships between the Resurrection Study Group and how our lives link all together. And really the bridge between that is the non-traditional approach to social and criminal justice. And before we get into introducing, sending some shout outs, I haven't formally introduced my altar to the space. So I want to just give a shout out to, you know, the ancestors. This is the space and where I live at in the morning, at the night, when I'm trying to contact with my true self and just get some energy. I spend time with the ancestors in a good way. And this is also, you know, a symbol of earth and just a reminder. About 2 or 3 years ago, me and Teresa was doing hiking and we found, Teresa's my wife, we found this stick And over sitting with it, we end up doing art on it, end up turning to be a symbol of our daughter that passed away, Star. So I just wanted to welcome our ancestors, my altar, my daughter, and all of our ancestors and all of your ancestors that come to this conversation in a good way to the building. And particular, we think about the non-traditional approach. I know for me, at least, the thread that I come through, it's hard for me not to mention one of our elders and one of our big bros and one of our ancestors that is extremely important to the sharing, the development, and the application of the non-traditional approach. And I want to give a big up to our big bro, Eddie Ellis, the brother Ibaka. And I want to ask BlackGod if he want to say a couple of words before we go into a moment of silence. But I want to share some silence for our ancestors, and particularly for Eddie, as that's going to be, Eddie's going to be a thread that goes through this conversation.
Yeah, we could just, keep it flowing with that spirit, man. And Eddie, Kibaka, we're going to give him much love throughout the whole conversation that we have, because when we talk about that intergenerational movement and how we connecting it, like you say, he's the bridge. So we're going to give him much love throughout this whole conversation, man. And pass that back to you, bro.
Peace to everybody in the chat, man. Resurrection. So let's give a pause, a silence. Let's pay some honor to our ancestors, and particularly to Eddie Ellis, as we get this conversation started. Please join us.
It's Christmas time. There's always a lot of burglaries around the holidays. So just checking the neighborhood to see if everyone's taking the proper precautions. That's all.
Oh, yeah, well, we have automatic timers for our lights, locks for our doors. That's what everybody do these days, right?
Thank you. Thank you. This is for our ancestors, particularly the ones that stand with us and plan with us. We talking about a pedagogy of patience. They still waiting for your transformation and for us to heal from all the steel blazing and generation after generation of living out the plantation. This is for our ancestors, particularly the ones that get killed for us, sacrifice and build for us. I'm talking about indigeneity without no regulation. Culture is our education. Emotional communication. Vulnerability is what we embracing. This is for our ancestors, particularly the ones that love you when they don't got to, but love you because they got you. This is for our ancestors, particularly the ones that stand with us and plan with us. I'm talking about the pedagogy of patience. They still waiting for our transformation and for us to heal from all the steel blazing and generation after generation of living out the plantation. That was for our ancestors. Shout out to our ancestors. We got a fire guest in the building. BlackGod, tell the folks a little bit about who you are, where you from, what's your CGP, your correct gender pronoun. Let's start with that.
Oh, man. My name is Richard Jackson, better known as H.O.L.L.A BlackGod. I'm everyday dude, man. I came up in Brooklyn, New York, Marcy Project. I did the things that teenagers do, and I was in it. You know what I'm saying? That mindset engulfed me at a very young age, and I wound up in the prison system, man, at 17 with a life sentence.
Uh-huh.
At that time, my motto was, whatever, paint the windows black, pull out the phones. I got till the sun burn out, whatever.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying? That's the type of mindset that I had. But thanks to the Resurrection Study Group that we're going to get into, you'll see the transformation.
Nah, we're going to definitely get into some of that. Before we get to some of that, let me throw some more at you to give to the crowd, man, to the folks. Tell the folks a little bit about what you fight for, and what does healing mean to you?
Oh man, come on, Cory.
Just a little bit. We just trying to warm up. What you fight
I
for? You know what you fight for? You know you can say
mean,
you can make it general. You know.
yeah, because as a black man, like I said, growing up in Brooklyn and experiencing the things I did, and even going through the whole prison experience and the coming back home experience, there's a lot of things that I personally fight for. I'm personally fighting for my spirituality right now. You know what I'm
Uh-huh.
saying? What I am to God. But on a broader level, on a black people level, man, I fight for our youth, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I fight for, because like H.O.L.A said, when the youth get right, the old are following shame.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm about, man. Like really fighting for and making sure our youth don't have to go through some of the similar situations that me and you had to go through. You know what I'm saying? Because we got the knowledge and we know what healing is. So we got that package of healing, actually expressing ourselves to each other as black men, as people. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like getting that shame out and healing. We good money. So that's what I'm fighting for at this moment, man.
All right, so let's get into the documentary before we get into some of the meat of the conversation. So we came to Hill as a documentary. Let folks know, how did you first come in contact with the documentary, and then what was your experience when you first watched the full documentary?
Wow. That ain't a fair question, Corey. A lot of emotional stuff running around when you say something like that. But I'm gonna try to keep it
And
short.
shout out to Rap Campaign. I think that's Devon in the building. Shout
Yes,
out
sir.
to all of the folks in the chat, man. Send your questions, send your comments, keep the spirit going, man. My bad, BlackGod. Keep it going.
Nah, we gotta give Devon his props. That's resurrection right there. I love you, bro. Thanks for the support. But that's a good question because the first view of the video, we're gonna have to backtrack a little because me and you made contact in Clinton in 2003. You know what I'm saying? We didn't remake contact till COVID hit. You know what I'm saying? And then we found out how this intergenerational movement connected us. And you invited me down to participate in the legacy. You ain't only invited me down, you paid for my way to come down. You know what I'm saying? We need you here,
Holla.
bro.
Holla did that. That
So
wasn't me. Shout out to Holla.
holla, yeah, holla. So that spirit alone brought me there. You know what I'm saying? And after being there with y'all and seeing the
White
video,
boy was good. My bad.
it was just so much, man, because it's common experiences, man. And you see it. You see the common experiences of hurt, of pain. But what comes out of it is perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
And organization that's hitting 80 youth organizations. You know what I'm saying? So
Talk about it. Talk
that
about it.
spirit is interconnected with the Resurrection Study Group and how we hit over 20, 30 facilities. You know what I'm saying? So that connection is just moving on, and it's going to be something 10, 20 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
So that video, I could talk to you so much about that documentary and what it meant to me personally, overall, holistically, of being detached from the movement for a minute, and that being a part of reconnecting me is just a whole different paradigm that we ain't got enough time to talk about right now, bro.
Mm. We definitely got time, man. We're gonna make time, man. You heard? So if you got something in there, let it out, man. Shout out to everybody in the chat. I see white boy from my block, 96th Street in the building. Ayula in the house repping the Bay Area. Shout out to Alex. Shout out to Keyron. We got Lady Love in the building. No question. So what for the folks who haven't seen the documentary, if there's somebody out there who haven't seen a documentary, you should definitely go watch it now. But if for folks haven't seen the documentary, what we got to plug the documentary. What you would tell people from what you've seen and what you know, what's the plug before we go into getting into the resurrection? Because I keep hearing you throw that out there, man. So we got to jump into that bag too.
Now we could get into the non-traditional approach, the resurrection, the new prison movement, the
We going
interconnection
there.
movement.
All of that.
Let's go. Let's tell
All
the
right, so
people how we was grinding, man. Let them know what was going on with this movement, man.
So we rap campaign Divine, we strive to build for self, for family, and for community. So let's
Yeah.
go to the non-traditional approach. So some people understand what the non-traditional approach to social and criminal justice is. For a lot of people in the movement, and definitely people not in like the formerly incarcerated people's movement, some people probably don't even know what this theory, with this research, with this application, with this movement is. So can you give us some understanding, like what is this idea or this movement, the non-traditional approach to social and criminal justice? But as you explain it, also give us some of this history that brought it together, so we can get some of that too. That brought the concept, the people together. Give us a little bit of all of that, and then depending on what you say, I got some more questions.
Yeah, depending on what I say, huh? But that's why I love you, bro. That's why I love you. But that's a good question, because a lot of times people hear the non-traditional approach and they hear the statistics and they run. You know what I'm saying? And that's good at times, but the question you ask, like, what's the foundation? And when we think about the foundation of the non-traditional approach to criminal social justice, we have to think about the Attica uprising in 1971,
Talk
right?
about it.
And when we think about the Attica uprising, in short, that was one of the realest stand up against oppression amongst prisoners in the Eastern Hemisphere.
Say that again. What you said? What you said? That sounded like some deep scholarship, like something we should be recording.
Nah, I'm just trying to put it in a capsule to what Attica was to this movement. You know what I'm saying? Because Attica said no more to these harsh conditions. Attica said no more. You're going to treat us like men.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And regardless of what happened at Attica, you know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of different stories of what happened with the organizing committees and all. But whatever happened, we have to know that the men that was in Attica at this time
Talk
was
about it.
socially conscious prisoners.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of the men. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you look at the 70s, I'm getting into the historical perspective now, bro.
Go for it, man. Flow. You feeling like flowing? It's on you.
So we're going to talk about this for a minute, because we got to understand the historical development of what Attica was, you know what I'm saying, and what it was to this movement. Because when we talk about the non-traditional approach, we got to talk about that mindset. So if we talk about that mindset in 1971, you begin to have a large majority of blacks and Latinos becoming the majority of the prison system. Prior to that, blacks and Latinos wasn't the majority, but due to political and Hoover, put it on what it need to be put on. Hoover put out policies to
COINTELPRO. No question.
Okay, so let's talk about it. COINTELPRO was designed to disrupt any organization, anything that would produce a black messiah or produce a movement that would be against the status quo. So they started locking them up in rapid numbers. And this is how they started becoming the majority of the prison system. We talking about Black Panthers, Nation of Islam, Weather People, Young Lords, and Yetas.
Talk about it.
All of them back then. So they became the majority of the prison system. So now they're in the system and they treat them like it's crazy. Now, remind you, we got all types of world wars and independence popping off in Africa. So it's a whole different mindset. Okay, so these are the men that was in Attica, and they popped. State came in, took it over. Over 500 of them men went to Green Haven. All right? 500 of that mindset, experiencing that trauma, went to Green Haven.
All right.
All right. Now they're in Green Haven. Now they begin to start creating what they call the think tank. And the think tank was an organizing committee, just like the youth organizing committee of H.O.L.A. That's what it was.
No
And they
question.
organized. They
Sharp,
sat down and said, yo, what's
still
going on?
stop, still sharp and still. You heard?
Exactly. Exactly. See the intergenerational movement, the mindset, the pieces. So they sat down and they started asking each other questions and getting things together and putting together position papers. Because if you sitting down and you talking to somebody and then you find out, yo, we from around the same way. Yo, we know the same people. Then they talking long, yo, we family. So, yo, damn, what's going on here? And they started doing their research. Mind you, 71, 72, this is before internet. So
Talk
imagine
about it.
the research they doing.
Talk about it.
But they doing very effective research that shocked legislators in the 90s. Like, they couldn't believe the numbers. And we're going to get into them numbers. They couldn't believe them numbers, and that's how the non-traditional approach came into being. You know what I'm saying? It was a bunch of position papers that came together. A package in 1990. 71 to 90, it was position papers, forming ideas, getting together, getting links, putting things together. So by 1990, when the legislators was on the set, they presented them with this: the non-traditional approach to criminal and social justice.
Yeah, that's deep right there. Thank you for that brief out, because I just never even thought about, like, when you just said from 70 to 1990, that's like almost a 20-year period of just building and just struggling and just bubbling up the idea and just tightening up and just putting it together and just tucking it. That like I never really thought about. When I came to prison in the early 2000s, the document was there, and when I came in contact with the wisdom from people like you and other brothers, a lot of that was already formulated, so thank you for sharing some of the steps of how that package came together. Yo, the chat is popping, man. We got a lot of energy in the chat, man. We got shout
So
out to,
let's answer.
ain't no questions, just love, man. We got to shout out to George Jackson and Jonathan Jackson. And I know you always talk about how the Attica, how that was deeply connected and influenced by Oakland and by what they was doing out there in George Jackson and them. I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
Yo, man, all you got to do is, as a member of Resurrection, we have an eye to look out for youth leadership. When I met Cory, we was in Clinton. I ain't know him, but I seen something in him. Ask him what book I gave him.
George Jackson, no question.
Soledad Brothers.
George Jackson on a low.
Come on, man. She on
In a
point.
towel. In a towel. Tell me how you gave it, because if you don't let people know how you gave it to me, they don't understand the political process that you went through. You heard to get that to me.
Exactly, man. And that's, George and Jonathan. And when we talk about Cain and Abel, two brothers, and then we talk about John and George and Jonathan, you have to look at it the same. Even though Cain killed Abel, George killed Jonathan. And when you look at leadership critically, you might say, oh, how you going to say that, BlackGod? But this is what we do in the Resurrection Study Group. We look at how each member affects every other member. This is how we look at that. You know what I'm saying? And that's a critical critique. And Jonathan was going to do Jonathan regardless, but that's a way to look at it. You know what I'm saying? And I implore us to start looking at things like that, man.
No, but I never heard that feedback. That's definitely love, man. I think part of where we are struggling in some of our healing as Black people and as movement people is we don't get enough time to study the learned lessons of past movements. And the learned lessons of past movements is not only studying, like, how people won or how people strategize, but also studying, like, the ways that we made mistakes and the way that we lost and the ways that we made moves probably
just capitalize that. She said Jonathan, a 17-year-old man child who literally follows his brother to his death. That's what's up.
But also to add on to our big bros and our elders and our ancestors, Jonathan and George, you also talk a lot about how their movement also inspired like what was going on in New York too.
Us to look at movements everywhere, because the thing was to make sure that if an Attica do happen, we got leadership there. So we got to look at all of those movements. We looked at what was going on in California with Jonathan and Soledad prisons and how they was moving. And they was moving in solidarity. You know what I'm saying? And those sent lessons. You got to remember, it was George's idea with Angela to bridge the gap between the community and the prison.
Talk about that.
California.
Talk about that. The prison and the community.
Yes.
Shout out to Angela Davis too, man, our big sister. Yeah. But you said it was George and Angela's idea. What?
Yes, because you hear all this community Pacifics and all of that. That was the idea, and that's when Berkeley and what's the other college that Yale, not Yale, is another major.
You in the Bay Area though? I don't know, man, but you dropping that Bay wisdom.
Yeah,
Berkeley is definitely in there.
That's the history. The George and Angela, they got the colleges to come in, and that's the first time society.
You talking about UCLA? Angela was at UCLA.
Yeah,
then, right?
There you go, UCLA. That's it. That's the college. They got them to come in, and that's the first time the outside, the community, the society began to see the atrocities and the what was going on in the prison system firsthand.
You dropping so much wisdom, big bro. Keep it going.
You making me remember all of this stuff, and that's a good thing, bro. That's a real good thing. That's what that intergenerational movement is about. Because once you connect the links, it's stronger. And when we get more links, we hold more together. We lock more in. So
we got people saying keep dropping that knowledge. We got people saying Attica was accumulation of wave of uprising nationwide following George Jackson murder.
Yes. It went from California, you had some in Chicago, then you had like the tombs and stuff here in New York. You know what I'm saying? Nah, Attica didn't happen in a capsule. That was a continuous movement of resistance. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we popping just like Haiti. Once Haiti popped off and Tucson and them got they independence, it started popping everywhere, all in the Virgin Islands and all of that. Then it came to the shores of America. So that's how movements happen. That's how things go. It's just not one thing, boom, Attica. Nah,
so we good. So we got some energy. We got some living room. The living room is kind of set. So that's the living room that the non-traditional approach to social and criminal justice, some of it, that it was born in. Somebody in the chat said like the basic question, the historical perspective, where you want to go. So we got that context. Give us some more about what is the non-traditional approach to social and criminal justice, what it means, what are some of the components of understanding its totality.
You want the basic question with that?
Wherever you want to start at from where you left off at, where you feel like you want to go.
All right. So once all of these position papers began to come together and that package was made, and we got to give Luke Mon, Larry White a big shout out in the actual putting that first non-traditional package together, because everybody had lanes, and Luke Mon, he was the editor of Green Haven.
Talk about it.
So Luke Mon had the newsroom.
Larry White, shout out.
Yeah,
shout out to the Green Haven think tank. These brothers are amazing. But Luke Mon, keep it going.
Yeah, Luke Mon was a major factor in getting that package ready to present to those legislators, putting all those position papers together to get that package right. You know what I'm saying? And then he had the printing capability and everything, graphics. We talking 1990, man.
1990.
Prison. You know what I'm saying? And so we definitely, we had to give him his love, because Lukman need to get love for that. So now is a package. Okay, now what the non-traditional approach mainly consists of is 3 parts. The first part is the historical perspective. The historical perspective traces the influx of Blacks and Latinos coming into the prison system from 1940s to 1992. And it specifically talks about how we came into the system. There's a lot of ramifications outside of that me and Cory's going to start hitting on it in historical, but that's what it is. It's tracing Blacks and Latinos becoming the influx of the New York State criminal justice system from 1940 to 1992. Clearly demonstrates it. Clearly. The second part of the non-traditional approach is the direct relationship. The direct relationship shows and demonstrates the direct relationship between Blacks and Latinos and the criminal justice system. It shows a direct relationship that we are an intricate part of the criminal justice system, clearly. The third part is the 3 program components. These are 3 program components that are supposed to be placed in any community-specific program that is supposed to address the needs of Blacks and Latinos. So if you got a Boys and Girls Club in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, Harlem, they got to have these 3 program components.
What are the 3 components?
We're going to get to all of that, right?
All right. I ain't know.
Because you got to understand that's the last part.
All
you
right.
got to internalize this historical perspective. You got to understand that direct relationship. Then you can rock with them components because you know what they are.
Nah, yo, Divine just threw in the basic question. Everybody want to hear that basic question. So when does the basic question come into this? Tell everybody a little bit about that basic question, because no matter if you don't know all about the non-traditional approach, you know that 7 neighborhood, you know some of that basic question, you know, you got a little bit of that. Everybody got a little bit of that do get it, you heard? But give us a little bit more than just a little bit of what the basic question is. Give people some spirit about what that is. I think you've already been doing that.
Some spirit about the basic question. The basic question is phenomenal. And we was taught the basic question in the resurrection study group because whenever you do a presentation, whenever you do anything, you got the statistics, you good money. You can't go wrong with the statistics, especially if they so alarming like the basic question. When you get alarming statistics like that, people got to listen. They got to say, wait, hold up. What are you talking about? All right. Now you got to put the basic question in the framework. So, like I said, when they got out of Attica, they began to ask each other questions. And those questions began to develop that basic question. Why is it that Blacks and Latinos at the same time represent 25% of New York State, but at the very same time represent over 85% of the New York State Department of Corrections? To even furthermore, how is it that 75% come from Pacific neighborhoods located in New York City and its environs? How did this happen?
How did this happen?
In the non-traditional approach.
And what is the future implication?
And then what is the future implication?
Damn, let me slow down on that question, because I just got my doctorate degree and they told me that, like, you know, they taught, or they was trying to teach me a little bit about, you know, research and asking questions. But the way that question was asked, that was a historical question, that was a present question, and that was a question for the future. That question grounded so much in that question. Like, yo, what is the problem now? How did this situation happen like this? Like, and what does this mean for tomorrow, 2020?
Exactly. But they ain't know we was going to have H.O.L.L.A. They ain't think this intergenerational relationship would extend to this point where it's on a different level now. You know what I'm saying? It's a whole different fight. You know, when you get into the healing justice, because in resurrection we did the. Oh, we going too far. Let's.
So we got the basic question. We talked about the historical perspective. We talked about, give us a little bit about, so where does, I heard this concept called crime genitive factors. Where does this idea of crime genitive factors fit into the non-traditional approach to social and criminal justice kind of like framework?
That's an excellent question. Crime genitive factors. That's somewhat of the meat of the healing part of the non-traditional approach. You know what I'm saying? That's really crime genitive factors. So when we talk about the direct relationship between Blacks and Latinos in the criminal justice system, and we asking ourselves, how did this happen? Why? What are the future implications? We have to look at the infrastructure of our communities and what's going on in our communities. And when we look inside of our communities and we look at that basic question and say, why our community, 75% of our communities going to these prisons, now we got to look at this shit a little deeper, excuse my language, and we got to say, what's the factors involved? There has to be, and they figured out that there was crime generative factors. These are factors that generate crime. So now we look at our community and they began to identify these factors that are prevalent in our communities that generate crime. And it starts from racism, and look at it specifically as institutional racism. You know, you look at family breakdown, single parent homes. You look at miseducation, undereducation. You look at unemployment, underemployment. You look at crime, drugs. All of these factors lead to crime, right? So these are the crime generative factors that are prevalent in our communities, but these factors also produce an attitude. So not only are these factors prevalent in the community, you also have crime generative attitudes that are prevalent inside the community that transfers into the prison system.
Talk about it.
So if you ain't got the corrective programs in the prison system, all they doing is building them crime generative attitudes to come back to the community as a defective product, and with 65% of a recidivism rate, wreaking havoc on the community and going back through this revolving door. So we got to address these crime generative attitudes. We have to, and that's where the 3 program components come in. You know what I'm saying? So you got to understand what's going on in the community, how it affects you internally. And when I say this is the healing process, this is the process where you got to address those attitudes. Why do I got the attitude that I don't care about this dude? Why I can't hold that shame on my mom's on crack? Why I got that shout? You know what I'm saying? It ain't the system fault I pulled that gun out. You know, we got to talk about eating beans and rice or not eating at all. You know how that felt. Yeah, we good now, but that shit is still in us. So in order to heal, you got to understand those factors that's inside the community, and you got to understand those factors that creates that attitude.
Talk about it. We got some love in the chat, man. Devon said the basic question, to summarize it, it occurred to him in the yard at Green Haven one day. How is it possible that I know everyone here? A-Rock said, so the basic question is asking, how is New York State Prison is predominantly filled with Blacks from New York City, specifically 7 neighborhoods? I was listening to the video you sent me today of Eddie breaking down the non-traditional approach. And once again, just to throw Eddie and Ibaka in the building, but what was deep, you know, to the basic question, you know, Eddie really was going into it, like really saying that, like, you know, New York State is made up of 150, you know, assembly districts, and that 18 of those assembly districts are the ones that's feeding the majority of the prison system. So when you think about the whole New York State of 150 assembly districts, from the city all the way up to like Dannemora, somewhere to Syracuse, and then you think about 18 of them that feeds all of the prison system, particularly 85, like, no, like 85% of it, and 75% of them come from 7 neighborhoods in New York City. And do you want to throw out any of those names, of those places? Do you want to shout out any blocks, any things? Because I think when you talk about those crime generative factors, how you think about why those 18 districts are so different from, like Eddie said, the other 132 districts. And what are the things that make these districts so differently that like astronomical amount of black people, and particularly black men from those districts, end up in prison that in the other districts they don't? And then you went into breaking it down, racism, the family structure. But what is those neighborhoods? I just want to give Eddie another shout out, from that video too.
Man, I can't, I know it's Lower East Side, Bedford Stuyvesant,
Brownsville, South
Bill,
Bronx,
yeah,
South
yeah.
Jamaica,
But
East Harlem.
as we go and understand that those neighborhoods might shift.
No question.
You know what I'm saying? The zip code might change. Like 11206 might be popping for 5 years.
No question.
And what they was doing, they was showing how the money it costs to incarcerate a youth and an adult, it costs like 100,000 upstate. It costs like close to 2 to 4 you. But the capitalizing is that they were saying these was $1 million blocks.
Talk about it.
You know what I'm saying?
Just to go to that point, after this analysis came out inside of prison, because the non-traditional approach to social and criminal justice has been teaching H.O.L.L.A, but the documentary, The 13th, the new Jim Crow, a lot of these iterations of larger consciousness of the prison industrial complex and mass incarceration, the non-traditional approach to social criminal justice, been saying this for years before, but it's also a lot of the foundation for where this stuff come from. So yeah, just keep going. I just want to make that point as you keep going.
Yo, you hear Devon talking about it'd be nice if we rep this again out here.
In the real world, I see that.
We repping it now, but yo, we doing it, bro. We doing it, man. We doing it, man. This is just the beginning, G. This is just the beginning. I missed your question because I was reading Devon.
So one effect of hoodwink, Devon said, we experienced generational trauma. It dawned on me that we couldn't possibly be the only ones doing crime. So why are we the only ones in prison? So South Bronx, Lower East Side, South Jamaica, Bed-Stuy, Harlem, East New York, Crown Heights, Brownsville were originally identified in the non-traditional approach. Let's talk about the 5 R's and the 3 program components, and then we're gonna get our way into the Resurrection Study Group.
You won't leave them 3 program components alone, huh?
Nah, because I feel like people need to get some of that before we go, unless you want to share that in the resurrection, but give us some of the 5 R's. What does that mean? Where does that come in at? Because you're doing a really good job of giving us history, but also, I see the non-traditional approach to social and criminal justice as like a formula for healing our people and re-socializing our people and rehumanizing our people. And really pulling from African and indigenous, and it says Latino, but I think of us as like just indigenous people, and from different cultures and different ethnic backgrounds, and using our stories and our journeys to teach each other. And the non-traditional approach is an application of that. And I've seen people like you, people like the brother Devon, Imani, me, so many other people, from Eddie to Larry White to Hassan, get transformed and come out and do so much for our people. So I already know that it's magic. And not even thinking about what it's done for H.O.L.La's young people and the YOC work and being connected to that legacy. So the non-traditional approach definitely helped us. We could talk about all of the ways that like, and you talk about this all the time, BlackGod. Like, we could talk about how, the 13th documentary and the new Jim Crow and a lot of the prison abolition movement, how those foundations politically and socially and historically you can trace them back to the work of the non-traditional approach. But when you think about the individuals who had a chance to come in contact with the Resurrection Study Group or the H.O.L.L.A Blue Room or the Green Haven think tank and be a part of leading some of that, these people like myself and you, like, we got some of the, you know, best healing that there's out there to get. You heard some of the best healing that you can get, you know, after being traumatized by all of this stuff. So tell us a little bit about, you know, let's get into the 5 R's, the 3 Pro. I'm trying to get into the resurrection, but I want us to let people know how this framework wasn't just a political strategy, but it brought the resurrection of people. You know, it brought the resurrection of people. And I feel like, you know, the Resurrection Study Group encompassed that, but the non-traditional approach is also that as well.
All right, and I gotta like say thank you for that spirit right there, because you just put some fire up in me. I'm getting ready to talk about this, and I just want to let y'all know that there's 3 packages of the non-traditional approach. You got your first one in 89, 90. You got your second one like 92. You got your 5th one 97. Resurrection Study Group did the last 2, and the 5 stages of reconciliation. That's what you saying the 5 R. That's called the 5 stages of reconciliation, and this was part of our healing and social projects, social purging sessions. You know what I'm saying? Because these 5 stages did what in resurrection what we labeled as creating a new African man. You know, the goal of the Resurrection Study Group, it was towards youth leadership and creating that new African man. What's wrong with the old one? We ain't dealing with that. We know we need a new one for today. This was a new African man, and under these 5 stages was your levels to atonement, your levels of resurrection. So the first stage was reconciliation, then you had responsibility, then you had reconstruction, then you had reconciliation, then you had redemption. And each one of these dealt with either a personal healing, a community healing, and a family healing with the obligation and commitment for your people.
Talk about it.
And I'm going to just read the 4th one, reconciliation, because most people got their definition of reconciliation, but under a Pan-Africanist, Afrocentric reconciliation, this is the 4th stage. This is right before you hit the redemption. And it say involve all of the above, plus some formal statement or right that expresses and reinforces our unification. This statement right must be jointly developed, represents the stage whereby concerned prisoners community come home to each other. So that was your obligation to link with your community and make a dying commitment. You had to do that. That you got to link and you got to do that. And that was part of the healing.
Yeah, that part right there sounds deep. Just not to cut you off on that, but I love the part that said it has to be written collectively.
Yeah, bro. So we had to go through some stuff, bro. We had to go through some, and it's healing. And if you read, like, the final stage takes place through our creative acts and the struggle that we engage in for our community empowerment. So whatever you going through, we don't want to hear that, man. This is for your community empowerment as a prisoner. Remember, these is as prisoners.
Y'all in prison talking about this. Y'all talking about outside the prison. Or y'all ain't even talking about just the prison community, right?
And the last part of the redemption is we redeem ourselves through conscious work we perform together. See, this is the political action committee. Putting that work, doing it in together, getting our communities right and the prison.
That remind me also when we was doing our 18-month process with H.O.L.L.A, I didn't know the depths to what you just expressed right there about some of those 5 R's, and particularly number 4 about that collective writing. But one of the things we did in H.O.L.A, we had this ritual called the commitment letter, where we wrote each other commitment letters on what we committing to as individuals, what we committing to as an individual for the collective, and what we committing to for the legacy, and also what we willing to sacrifice that's not about us, so that we can help the team. And we had to write these letters on our own for like 2 weeks or so, and then we all submitted the letters, and we came in and had a circle and read our letters to each other and gave each other feedback on the letters. You know, I think that was like some of that spirit, because people got a chance to be like, yo, that's what you committing to, that's all you giving? Like, what you mean? Like, yo, like yo, what you mean that's all? Like that's how you see us? So you got a chance to see where people love you at, or like how much people love you, and like you get to respond to some of that, and you also get to let people know, like, you know, like, I think you got more in your tank to give too, if you feel like somebody, and then you also confirm somebody, like, yo, I see you struggling. I see you struggling. This is fire, man. This is fire. We didn't just theorize. We hit the ground running like CeeLo Dice to make it real. Yo, Devon, we're going to get into some of that resurrection, hit the ground running, man. We got like 20 so minutes. So this is good, man. So I think you did a good job with the 5 R's. And really, you already kind of went on resurrection, but I kind of want to just frame this like thinking about the non-traditional approach as like a framework, and then it was applied. I feel like one of the ways that it was applied was through youth development, and particularly through the Resurrection Study Group, was like a youth development formation. So talk a little bit about Resurrection Study Group, like you've been kind of like started off, what it is, but also make that connection to the non-traditional approach to resurrection, to the person, you know, Eddie, the person who was the part that was bringing some of that connection, and then what it meant for like youth development too, really ground all of this stuff around the 5 R's, particularly in a framework of youth development, to help the audience understand how all of these ideas about the basic question, the historical perspective, the direct relationship, how did that become like a application for like youth development?
Wow, that's a big question, man. And there's a lot in that question, man.
I'm sorry, man.
All right. Wow, I don't even know where to start at, bro. I'm gonna start with the spirit, the Resurrection Study Group. You know, it started with Kibaka in 1989. And what I left out about the formation, like when Eddie, in 1989, September 30th, the Resurrection Study Group was formatted by Kibaka, Eddie Ellis. Also in 1989, September, there was a institutional strike in Greenhaven facility. And everybody was gonna lock in for, I think it was good time, minimum wage, and the right to vote. So everybody locked in. But what the administration do, they transfer everybody out when is a demonstration. The reason why Eddie didn't get transferred out is because he had just got back from the theology program in Sing Sing. Came back. One of the requirements was when you come back with the theology program that you start a 1-year program in the facility you left. So he came back to Greenhaven at this time, and he started the Faith and Life Study Group. The Faith and Life Study Group started September 30th, 1989. It wasn't until that December during Kwanzaa that we took on our group identity and started reciting our creed, and we named ourselves the Resurrection Study Group.
So wait, before y'all was the Resurrection Study Group, y'all was the Faith and Justice?
Faith and Life. Faith and Life.
Faith and Life. So I just want to document that. So the Resurrection Study Group was something else before it became the Resurrection Study Group. I keep it down.
Yes. So once we became, Eddie Kibaka taught the Resurrection Study Group from 1989 September to February of 1991. And then he was transferred to Woodburn Correction Facility. To your question now, we got the non-traditional approach in our hand. Prior to Eddie leaving, remember, 1990, they had their first meeting with legislators.
Who is they?
1990,
Who is they?
Socially conscious prisoners in Greenhaven Resurrection Study Group.
All right.
By 1992, we still got it going, but non-traditional approach is our platform. We reaching out, we made contact, reestablished contact with Dr. Alice Green from the Center of Law and Justice.
Wait up. You in 92. Take me back to 86. Take me back. Let's just
86.
I mean, not 86. Take me back to 89 and the start of Resurrection. And like what is it? What does it mean? I know you said Eddie started for 2 years almost, and then he left. But what is the spirit of Resurrection? I know you said it took a couple of months around Kwanzaa for y'all to get your name. But what is the mission? What is the spirit? What is the energy? What is the philosophy? What does the resurrection study mean? Give us some definition, some spirit, like, you know, of and also grounded in youth development. Like, how does it relate to like young people too, and training? Where you going? I'm throwing you back. I'm bringing you back. Where you going?
Who? Nah, I ain't going nowhere.
Don't go. Let's stay 89, 90 for a minute, and we develop in 91. You know, when Eddie is leaving and Eddie is transferring out, and people is studying. Like, get us in that energy there to let us know what the spirit of like what was being developed.
Resurrection. Okay.
Resurrection.
So I went into the non-traditional. Okay. I think I got you. But okay, I gotta tap into that resurrection spirit right now. Yo, Devon, where you at?
Devon, where you at, man? He said live in PA.
Yeah.
He said when you
with that resurrection spirit. All right, now listen, when I went into the resurrection study group, I was about 18, 19 years old. And I ain't gonna lie to you, I had my razor in my mouth. You know what I'm saying? Because the only reason I went up in there because when the resurrection study group started, Eddie got a lot of the names from the Black Studies course. You know what I'm saying? Because that was the funnel. And I was in the Black Studies class to get on the side of that building with my cronies. So my head ain't into this stuff. So I remember that first class. I go to class, they talking about Pan-Africanism, Afrocentricity, and all that shit way over my head. I'm like, yo, come on, man. You know what I'm saying? But it was a part in this conversation, in Kibaka conversation, we started talking about his pops, you know what I'm saying? And how his pops didn't see him there. And like everybody else was supposed to be there, but not his son. And it was personal to him and it was personal to me because that's how my family felt. You know what I'm saying? But he got into something called popular culture and how the youth was beginning to do what they was doing. And you got to remember at this time, it was a Generation X. You know what I'm saying? They was like wiping the youth off. Like, yo, fuck this, excuse my language, like, this generation is gone. This is around the time with the Central Park jogger. Crazy, you know what I'm saying? So youth at this period, the mindset that youth wasn't about nothing. But like I said earlier, Eddie was telling us like, yo, we got to get the youth because if you teach the youth and if you look at any historical movement from China to our civil rights movement, you'll see that it was the youth that propelled the movement. It was SNCC, CORE, RAM. It was youth organizations that propelled the civil rights movement when they needed that push. You know what I'm saying? It was some youth at the Woolworth markets sitting down on the freedom rides. That was youth. And Eddie always said that it would be the youth that's going to get us out of this. It's going to be the youth to lead us into the promised land. Ask Moses. It was the youth. So you can look into history and always see that is that young, energetic mindset that's willing to break the barriers of traditional modes. And that's why it's non-traditional. It's that youth motivation. Traditional is old. We're trying to get away from the old. We're trying to do the new because it's the new that's going to get us past the humps. We can't do what we did during slavery. We can't do what we did when we was kings and queens. We got to do what we got to do today. And we need the youth and their mindset. You know what I'm saying? We did that research without Google. What can the youth do with this research with Google. They're
Talk
gonna
about it.
take us to where we gotta go.
Talk
And
about
this was the mindset of resurrection. Ask Divine. Divine was one of the youngest brothers in the jail. Yo, that's a young brother. He got a head on his shoulders. We got him. And Divine came in and he went through it and became a leader, resurrect. And that's what we do. We looking for leadership. We ain't looking for old dudes. Not that old dudes can't contribute, but
Or
we
old
need that
sisters. Or old
old
sisters.
sisters. But I'm talking about within the system. We talking about resurrection.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we ain't gonna leave. I got a beautiful sister on my side. I need her. She got me on here tonight. You know what I'm saying? So we need that support of the sisters, but it was a mindset of getting those young black men coming into the system, young, getting that mind before they wild out. Yeah, they didn't let me play an organized sport until I got a college degree. This was the mindset of that think tank mindset. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so was that enough for that youthful spirit of the resurrection study group? And
That's some of it, man. People saying
that
we
was just
seeing
some
that
of it.
now. People saying that's why Moses marched around for 40 years in the desert to get rid of all that old
Oh,
complacent head so that the youth energy can make it happen. No
that's
nation
right.
can grow without its youth and definitely without its women and men. Some ideas that Allah had when he gathered in NYC to develop 5%,
Mm.
the 5% nation.
That's
So
right.
people are
The
saying like,
first nine. No, let's talk about that for a minute because the first nine born, those was the first pupils of the Father. That was started the nations of gods and earth. And he looked to those like Black Messiah in them. They was heads of like youth organizations out there, but they was young leaders. And that's who the father Clarence X pulled in. That's who the first nine born are made of. That's that youth. And you can see that throughout history. You have to get the youth if you want to get something to really propel and effectuate changes in our society.
so the Resurrection Study Group is an extension of the non-traditional approach, particularly because Eddie Ibaka is one of the Greenhaven think tank organizers, was in Attica, transferred to Greenhaven, and he was one of the people that helped co-found the Resurrection Study Group. From what I'm hearing what you saying that you had to like people came from the Black Studies program. What is the Black Studies program? Is it a week program? Is it 10 days? Like, is it 3 months? Like, what do you learn in the Black Studies program? Because I'm hearing people coming from the Black Studies program before they make it to Resurrection. So give us a little bit of breakdown of what's in the Black Studies and what that kind of like requirement or that process is of like getting to the Resurrection. Like, what is some of that wisdom or energy or strategy around that?
Uh, well, the Black Studies program was one of the first inmate program only ran by inmate in New York State, right? And this program was run by inmates, and basically financed by
People in
inmates.
prison too. People in prison. Can we say people in prison, Big Bro?
Oh, my bad. Yes. People
All
in
right.
prison,
People in
prisons.
prison.
And we like to say convicts, my bad. Um, yeah, and it was kind of revolutionary, but they taught everything from Kemetic history
Mm.
to the European exploitation of ivory and the elephants, to the kidnapping. Yo, I learned so much. When I first went in there, I wasn't interested. You know what I'm saying? But when we got into the exploitation of ivory from the elephants on the African continents by Europeans over here, that kind of shook me up on how vicious they was, how they would kill whole villages just to have that campsite to kill elephants to get ivory. Because when you look at our indigenous history, if we killed one of our indigenous people was pygmies, right? And the elephant was they meal, but they ate every part of the elephant, every single part. And Oh, you got me on something else. But this was the Black Studies talk, right?
You went in the
Got me
zone.
zone, and I'm thinking
You went in
about
the zone.
how we do and how we cherish our land and our people, and see if people come over there and just disrespect it to the fullest regard, you know? And that kind of shocked me. And then we went right into the transatlantic enslavement, you know, and to actually see the triangle. And I'm from Brooklyn. I don't know none of this shit. You know what I'm saying? It's rocking my world to see a slave ship. You know what I'm saying? And how they had us on there in sardines. You know what I'm saying? It's rocking my world to see how the white dude Caesar came up in Egypt. You know what I'm saying? It's rocking my world to see we was dentists, mathematicians, all type archaeology. We did it all at high levels that they don't even understand today. They trying to figure it out. So learning all of this in Black studies, and a lot of us being in resurrection coming from Black studies, kind of put us ahead of the game. You know what I'm saying? Because we already had our consciousness of being Black. Now, what the resurrection study group did,
How long was the Black Studies
the
program
Black
before?
Studies was a program. You get
How
that
long was it?
program. So it was my morning program. So every morning, Monday to Friday, I went to Black Studies.
It's unlimited? It was unlimited, or did you?
And you just go. Every morning, that's your program. That's that. And that's what I said. It was one of the first paid inmate programs in the state of New York.
Oh, that's official. I didn't know that you was getting paid to go there.
Yeah, you get just like any other program, you get paid.
So damn, how they take that out when I got there? Like, that's crazy. Why they have me on laws and grounds? How they have me on laws and grounds and not in Black Studies? You heard?
Yo.
I thought I never knew to just now that was an actual program. I thought that was just a class like during Kwanzaa or during the jail. You take 18 weeks and people do that on their own. But people's literally going to program in Black Studies. How did it? You got to break that down. When did that leave? When did that leave? That's still in Green Haven or only in Green Haven? Why that wasn't statewide?
I don't know, because Green Haven, like I said, you have 500 guys coming from Attica. That mindset that was there, they knew they needed their history and culture. So that was one of the first things of the think tank to set up, a Black Studies class. And the colleges. We got the colleges coming in by 72, 73. You know what I'm saying? You setting up community civic programming that has the 3 program components involved, because that's what we need.
Shout out to Malik and Hassan, man. Hassan is the first person that I personally heard the warrior spirit from, so I always give Hassan, bigs ups, Green Haven think tank. I didn't even know Hassan was one of the instructors in the Black Study program. See, I'm learning myself today. But Hassan is, I heard Eddie talk about the warrior spirit, and I heard you talk about Eddie talking about the warrior spirit later on. But for me, like my first introduction to like thinking and hearing like the analysis around the warrior spirit came from Hassan. So shout out to our big bro there. Risto in the building. Mariah's in the building. A lot of folks are saying we definitely gonna need a part 2 to this. You heard? We definitely gonna need a part 2. We got a couple of more minutes and we started late, man. I want to get a couple of more questions in about the resurrection before we leave here. So give us. So we got the Black Studies program.
From that picture of resurrection.
I can't show it. I'm on my phone, man. I don't know if you can show it. BlackGod got to show the resurrection, man. Let's get the resurrection, the original resurrection picture on the screen. We got about 5, 10, 15 minutes. We start a little late, man. We might take a little more time. Plus, people still in here. It seems like we popping, man. We on Black Center Indigenous time, man. So if the family's still here, we still here, man.
I'm sorry.
You can't.
But yo, where we going? We're gonna have a part 2. What we ending this?
No. We're gonna part 2, but let me get a couple more. Let me get we might got more than 5 minutes. You got a little bit more time if we need to?
Yeah.
All right. So
is my babysitter Sharika? You still there?
Sharika here? You here, Sharika? What's good? Yo, we're gonna end with the creed. So get that before we close out, BlackGod. We closing out with the creed. So your mental note, man. Get your mind ready for that, man. On the
Oh
back
man.
burner.
Silly.
Divine requested that, man. Divine just threw that out there. So
So he
we,
better say it then.
we ain't going to it yet, but I'm just giving you an alley-oop to get ready. So let's go. 18. We in Black Studies. People studying about warrior spirit, about Kemetic history, about the transatlantic slavery. Those 3 R's are those 3 program components, and the 5 R's is instilled in the Black Studies program. Then those young people are selected, or those group of people are selected into the Resurrection Study Group. So what kind of teachings and learnings are y'all doing in the Resurrection Study Group? What do y'all study? How do y'all learn together? What is some of the stuff y'all do internally that like help us understand some of the non-traditional approaches that y'all was engaging that led to like how beautiful y'all have grown? Like gives people some insights on what was the teaching like, what was y'all studying, how did y'all share leadership, how did y'all learn internally? That can go from social purging, I heard you talking, to personal purging. It can go to study. So just give us a little window inside of a couple of resurrection internal sessions in 80, 89, 90, and like let people know like how y'all like a learning and why, how that kept building, where people can get a sense of what non-traditional mean outside of some of that like just language and non-traditional.
Kind of. I'm a jump a little bit, bro. Dr. Green. I'm
Go for it.
but I'm gonna bring it around because that's a loaded question. You know what I'm saying? Because Resurrection went through a lot. Like today, we could talk about it and we could, really build on its accomplishments, but it was a lot of struggle involved. Like I said, Eddie left in '91. So when Eddie left, Kishaka took the helms. But before he left, I gotta give it to him. First we was meeting on Saturdays, then we started meeting on Wednesdays, then we started meeting on Thursdays. So we meeting Saturday, Wednesday, and Thursdays. So we was getting it in. And the things that we was getting it in on was spiritual enhancement. The Resurrection Study Group got a 25-week course. And the first section is spiritual enhancement. Because inside our spiritual enhancement, before we got into liberation theology, because that's our base, liberation theology, that God's coming from the oppressed people, we got into Pan-Africanism and Afrocentricity.
Mm-hmm.
Because before you can actually see a God, you got to view yourself. You got to know who you are. How you look into somebody and you don't know who you are. You know what I'm saying? So you got to get into yourself first. And Afrocentricity, it teaches us how to view the world from Black lenses. You know what I'm saying? When you look at a TV show, when you read a book, you got to see, how does that affect me today, 2020, as a Black man, as a Black woman? You know what I'm saying? What is this overall theme in this show trying to tell me as a Black man, a Black woman? When you look at the news, when you look at the world from an Afrocentric perspective. And Pan-Africanism embraced it by saying, listen, it ain't enough to be Black. It ain't enough. You have to interconnect that with your people. And, Marcus Garvey, he had 3 components to Pan-Africanism. So once you got that world view and you could see yourself and you could see how you interact with the world as a Black man, as a Black woman, you know what I'm saying? George Floyd wouldn't have been so horrific had we been looking at ourselves from an Afrocentric perspective. We'd have knew that this type of behavior from this type of system is garnered and it's going to continue to come.
Talk
But
about it.
that's because we're not looking at it from an Afrocentric perspective. We're looking at it from a reactive perspective. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I can't believe that. Nah, but however, when you wrap that or embrace it with the Pan-Africanism, you see Pan-Africanism, three components by Marcus Garvey was self-reliance, self-determination, and nationhood.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Once you bring that together, it's us. And that was our spiritual enhancement on top of James Cone and liberation theology. And looking at the Bible from a oppressed view. I'm not looking at it as a heaven in the sky. I'm looking at how Jesus said, teach my hands to war. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking at it, his skin is bronze. It's a different view. And when we begin to see these views from our perspective, then we could move forward. And that was spiritual advancement. That's what that first part of resurrection is about. And that's how we taught. So once Eddie left, I mean, we grounded now. You know what I'm saying? At least 15. We grounded. So we got the non-traditional approach, Kishaka take leadership. Now it's mad dissension. You know, we started 25, 30. So he leave, now it's mad dissensions, it's mad splinter groups, dudes calling us all types of names, they doing this. And that hurts. And we got to pump. We got to continue to pump the movement and not get caught up on the prison stuff, the prisoner politics. Because we got our stomping, we got our blueprint, the non-traditional approach. So we got to develop these political action committees. We got to maintain contact with Dr. Green and legislators. And we got to be in the forefront of that. And Devon played the big part because he worked in the law library. You got to remember, we got to get copies. We sending stuff out. You know what I'm saying? All of that plays a part. So, and that's what Resurrect, all of us had different lines, like Devon in the law library. So we need something done, copied, legal work. That's the strategist. It was him and Little Infinite. They was in the law library. Me, I was in grievance. I was in grievance and click. Jamel was in building 12. Anything going on? You know what I'm saying? So each member of Resurrection was in a specific part of the building that it needs to be done. We could do. We had our own number system, our own alphabet. And these was what kept us together in our community. And also, after you complete your 25-week course, that Kwanzaa will have a celebration and you'll get your umbrella. We had an emblem. Resurrection on top of the umbrella, Pan-Africanism going down the side. But we had a nice emblem and you get your leather umbrella once you complete the course. So it was a lot of mechanisms that kept us together. You know?
Keep going, bro. No, that's Teresa just walking through. Keep going.
I mean, one of the most beautiful parts is that we always looked out, like when you came into the class, it was always, you gotta hug everybody. You know what I'm saying? It was always like mad love. You come in class, boom, 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 boom. Everybody, and it's love. You know what I'm saying? You felt the electricity. And what brought it together was just like, yo, man, we got work to do. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, Attica, it didn't happen in a vacuum, but Eddie Kibaka, he was in C Block when Attica jumped off. So he's looking at this through the window. And you got to remember, at this time, Eddie is like 20-something years old. He a young dude. He ain't the Kibaka, you know, people know now. He's a young dude. He's a youth. So he's watching this shit through the window. Attica, they drop bomb, tear gas, shooting. He watching this through the window. Prior to that, he Black Panther. He's an organizer, but he's young. Dude is a young dude, but he got that warrior spirit. So he see this. He leave Attica. He gets involved with the think tank. You know what I'm saying? When he involved with the think tank, he ain't got but about 4 or 5 years in. This is a young genius, man, that we don't really give him credit for. We look at his accomplishments and say, yo, that's a bad dude, but look where he came from. Look where he came. Look at his transition, even through the prison system. And then he go home and just take it to another level that a lot of people didn't understand. And me and Devon was talking about it earlier, like the struggle it's painful and deep, bro. I mean, it gets real painful. Sometimes you want to give up. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you just want to let go for a little while. He ain't do none of that. He never let go. He never gave up. He never took a breath for himself. Never. Until his deathbed. And he pumped the non-traditional approach, and he took it on different levels. It's different levels. He took it on different levels. And I love the level of resurrection because he knew that if you infuse a mindset and oppress people that instill strength, it's going to live forever. Okay. Non-traditional approach to criminal and social justice.
Now that was beautiful. You dropped so much in that right there, man.
Yeah.
From I'm learning a lot right here, man. 25-week, first part of it is spiritual development and spiritual enhancement and finding yourself. So beautiful, so much to say. I was doing around the prison, and I want to close on that questionnaire. But before I go to that closing question, say something about like you talked to me about purging sessions that I feel like happen internally too. Say a little bit about what the purging sessions are and how that played a part of some of your own internal study and internal healing and internal work too that happened within the resurrection study. What is a purging session, and what and what is it for?
Oh, all right. I'm trying.
Yeah, Devon, that's the 97 version. Man, Kwanzaa is still the only black Afrocentric celebration created in honor for the blacks. A-Rock said that. Let me give some shout outs to the people. Devon said, people hated Allah the Father for helping the youth empower themselves instead of treating them bad like adult groups and NAACP and whatnot. The Resurrection Study Group went through the same developmental experience as the 5%ers. Mariah says, sorry, I'm late. I was in another meeting. We hear you, Mariah. Glad you joined us. Facts. Resurrection Study Group was like our own self-imposed job / program. Everything black, including the Arabs' invasion of black enslavement before the Europeans hijacked it, and them after the Battle of Sita in 1415. Now, thanks for that history, man, because when you think about ancient black people's religion and spirituality and existence, we definitely got to talk about the Arabs' invasion and how we lost a lot of our spirituality, and how we lost a lot of ourselves and a lot of our healing and our cosmology. So thank you for that one. I'm here. Give us the creed. Give us the creed. Give us the creed. We're gonna end with the creed, man. So two more questions. So BlackGod, tell us about the purging sessions, and then if you want to, you give us a little bit about what y'all did outside of your internal group. You already started talking about how y'all was in different places in jail, but let us know what y'all did. You know, community with the district attorney, with Dr. Alice Green. Who is that? Let us know how that resurrection study group internal work. How did it of your external group, and even talk a little bit about when y'all left Greenhaven and y'all went to other prisons, like how did the work go a little bit that way too? So I want to question about what is the purging sessions, and then share a little bit about what y'all did outside of the internal group so people can get a sense on that, and we'll close on that. Always big questions.
Gee, man,
Always big questions. We don't ask more questions. We like got too much breath, man. Whatever you can get in
all
that.
right, all right. I got you, bro. I got you. Okay. Purging sessions. We had what we call social purging and personal purging sessions. And what this was we would get around in a circle Normally we have it like our classes would be classroom format, or we just, come in, face the board, whatever. However, during our purging sessions, we actually gets in a circle and sit down. And the thing was, like, a social purging is if something happened, like at this time, Yusef Hawkins, and we'll talk about issues that's going on people and get into it on a deep, and it gets real emotional. But it was the personal purging sessions that got really, really phenomenal. I mean, they really got deep because in these personal purging sessions, brothers got into what was really hurting them. You know what I'm saying? Yo, my daughter ain't speak to me in 5 years. What could I do? It hurt. Yo, my mom's died. Yo, I ain't get the visit I was expecting to get it. Yo, I got forever in a day. I don't think I'm never going home. And as black men, we don't sit down together and talk and share parts of our heart and soul with each other. And it's so empowering when we begin to do that. When men really sit down and do that, we help each other tremendously. But we have to get away from the toxic masculinity and let those guards down and begin to talk. And within these personal purging sessions, we was able to hit that limit, and we was able to help each other. We was able to cry with each other and feel like a man. You know what I'm saying? And walk out that room and feel like, the slave master got them chains up off us because we let that go.
That new African man was growing, huh?
That new African man, exactly. And he grows and he continues to grow. And I mean, these personal purging sessions would get so deep that literally, the linoleum floor would sweat to where you could actually slip on the floor walking out.
That's how much spirit and how much heat was in the room, huh?
Exactly. And we have
like a sauna. That sounds like a sauna. That sounds like a purging session for real. Like y'all really getting toxins out.
I'm telling you, you can't make this up, bro. And this ain't just one time. Yo, remember that time in the floor sweaty? Nah, this was a regular happening.
Talk about it.
And purging sessions wasn't announced. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like, yo, come to class, we having a purging session. Nah. It'll just be a spirit. Yo, we need a purging session.
Somebody come out of cell, somebody get a letter, somebody get a message from the state. And that when they come, they bring that to the session and that turn into something what it needs to turn into.
Yeah. Or it might just be the vibe of the group. Because when you working with brothers, you in prison, yo, stay out my business, yo, this me. It be internal strifes. Yo, why you ain't get that paperwork done? Or something to that extent. And then we beefing with each other internally and don't really understand the turmoil that brings to the whole group when it's beefs within the group between two brothers. Or they don't agree with the way this is going, or he don't agree with the way that is going. It just brings so much turmoil. So sometimes it'd be like, yo, come on, we need a purging session. You and Inf got beef, man. Y'all got to talk that shit out.
Y'all got to talk that out.
Y'all got to talk that out.
And H.O.L.A, man, we called that, like, we created a ritual called keeping it real. Like, we got to keep it real. We need a session to keep it real. But nah, thank you. Making that intergenerational. We ain't get there yet. That's probably part 2 or part 3, but we're going to come back to that line. Now, keep it going. So you see something pop off between the energy of people, and you're like, nah, we got to slow it down because we know each other. Yeah. It's time for us to, like, what's going on? Let's talk about what's going on. Let's purge about that.
Yeah, in the whole group. Like, I don't know if you heard, but sometimes the group, sometimes y'all just need a stabilizer. We just need to get back on the same page, and we all got a lot going on. So come on, let's have this social purging. And then sometimes we also had social purgings, like, and we'll break bread. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the social purging, just break bread. And those are good. Those are it's the healing circles, bro. That's why I said we on point. We know where we gotta go with this. We got the answers, man. We
We
got
came
the
to
answers.
heal.
We came. What they came to do?
What you came to do. Nah, so that was good. So last question. That was good wrapping up some of the internal work. It's a lot more to that
It
how
is.
those how those 3 programs and the 5 R's are applied in resurrection. But give us some spirit about how did y'all translate that outside of your internal group, the caucus stuff, the how I met you and how it like the idea transfer to other programs, other stuff. Talk about how you was talking about how y'all spread out in different parts of the prison. But give us a little bit about how some of the work the resurrection study group did, how it went outside of the internal group and till we, got here today. You don't really gotta go too far today, but some of the stuff y'all was doing back then to keep the work going and keep sharing the work.
Oh, that's that. Whoa. Well, it was many different avenues. We had to be real crafty on how it could be done because you got to remember the things I was taught in resurrection wasn't administratively approved or looked upon favorably.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to pull a lot of things off clandestinely. But one credit I would have to give is that in the development of youth, I can't hold this phone in my hand. I was trying to get some charger. I gotta use my hands, But when resurrection started, right? And I gotta give y'all this that in 1989, by December of 1989, Al went to Easton, Al Thomas, and then Kush went to Easton by like February of 90. So at the same time Resurrection was developing in Greenhaven, it was developing in Easton too. Right? It was
Eastern
just
Correctional Facility in New York.
because remember, Eddie is still in Greenhaven and we still communicate in correspondence with them. So they getting everything we getting. And they pump in Easton.
Dope.
All right. So you got an Easton Resurrection Study Group.
So that's kind of like the first step out of Greenhaven, because the first iteration of the Resurrection Study Group outside of Greenhaven, because I found it in Clinton with you, but the first step of that went to Easton directly right then, right?
Exactly. And that's what I'm getting ready to get into, bro. You let me segue into your question is that it was incumbent upon us and a commitment that we was taught to be a cadre of youth leaders because we looked at all of our previous leaders and we found out once they was assassinated, the movement stopped. So resurrection took on the ideology of developing a cadre of leaders. So once you kill a leader, we all popping. So just like when Eddie went to Woodburn, we still went on because we had the cadre leadership model. So when anytime a guy left the Resurrection Study Group and he went to another jail, it was incumbent upon him to set up there. Okay, that's how we started to spread throughout the prison system. How we started to spread throughout society was one of our main links was Dr. Alice Green from the Community Justice Center in Albany. Black Liberation 501c. She's everything. She's for the people. And she had a long-standing relationship with the think tanks. So once the non-traditional approach was packaged, she was the spearhead in getting the legislative involvement. So she was the liaison in the streets for the non-traditional approach and the legislators, and that's how we had the legislative conferences. And the legislative conferences consisted of the direct relationship, where we brought together the legislators, the governor office, the Department of Correction, and socially conscious prisoners. And we sat at the table and we talked about the prison The basic question.
Wait a minute, y'all was doing that in a conference in the college, or did that happen? Where did it happen at?
That happened in Greenhaven Prison.
Inside of prison, y'all was doing all right, my bad. Let me just make sure I know where that's happening at.
Yeah. We doing this from inside the prison. I told you how we spread it in the prison was through transfers, and this is how we spread it in the community. So now, and remember the fourth part of the 5 R's, where you have to make your community connection. That was a big part too of bringing those people to the table. Because like I said, we got the legislators, the governor's office, and the community in prison. We together. We're not a separate entity. The community and prisons is one entity.
Talk about it.
Bringing all of them together, and we talking about pertinent issues affecting Blacks and Latinos in the criminal justice system. We started from good time to fighting Jenner's law to abolishing moratorium on prisons, a variety of issues.
The rise of the prison population, of the prisons, the development of more jails upstate and more prisons upstate.
Exactly, and we develop ideas with the community. Like when we first got into our prison moratorium, it was hard to get the state to stop building prisons. But Dr. Alice Green, she came up with the environmental factor, and when you see a rise in well,
we don't talk about that enough. Break some of that environmental factor. We gotta get into that bag too.
Yeah, and the environmental factor is what impeded the process of them building more prisons at that early stage in the 90s. But they did get it off in the late 90s. But we kind of stopped it. Had we had the momentum, we could have got it. But you got to remember that this movement is kind of splintered, because at that time, even though we fighting that, one of the main movements was the Rockefeller movement. And when we say this, that was galvanizing a lot of people in support that take away from the good time and the other issues. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes in us creating and fighting for things, we got to understand the social environment and coalition.
And how these social issues are connected, and
exactly.
how we want to like keep all of these things in mind, so when we attack them, we find a place that encompasses all, thinking about the intersections of them and not just one of them or something, you know?
Exactly. And you know, that's my view, because you know, personally, I wanted good time. I got life, man. I want to push this time. What the resurrection say, we got to pull back. We can't push. All of us got life, to tell you the truth. And 90% of resurrection was lifers. You know, other factors. So that's the issue we want. But we know we leading the people. We can't push our issues. So we going all of these issues. We hitting them all. And we educating legislators. That's what we have to understand. They ain't know the basic question.
Those 18 assembly districts was coming through to get that learning. They learn what the fuck is going on in their district. How did that phenomenon happen in your district, sir, ma'am? And shout out to Dr. Alice Green, and shout out to all of the Resurrection Study Group leaders. Shout out to the people that came and carried that idea. Shout out to Imani. Shout out to Divine. Shout out to the RAP campaign, working to free our elders. RAP got something going on tomorrow. Divine put some more information in the chat. But this work is like in many different bags. But definitely, like BlackGod was saying, the Resurrection Study Group definitely had a lot of people who had a lot of time in prison and had life in prison. There's still a lot of our brothers and sisters who are old in prison, and a lot of people who just are struggling with life in prison as well. So let's definitely keep that in mind and keep thinking about who we need to be and how we connect with our families in prison, and how we organize with people like RAP, people like H.O.L.L.A, people like BlackGod, to like stay connected to getting our people out of prison that is old, and also, you know, getting our people out of prison, you know, struggling through life sentences. And also the wisdom and the journeys, because a lot of people that I learned from, not just BlackGod, who gave me the George Jackson book, But a lot of people that I learned from in prison were like people who were lifeless, or people who had a lot of time in prison and just gave me like spirit and potential and investment that like, yeah, like I don't even know how to name it for them, because a lot of these people probably, you know, struggling with at the parole board and not sure when they gonna make their turn to get out. But they see somebody like me with an '04 number, and give me a lot of love. So once again, shout out to our elders, and shout out to our people. The decline of Black communities was the result of what was formalized as the binging neglect federal government policy, localized in NYC as planned shrinkage. Now the government been hurting us, man. Things we would do. Mariah said things would get better, not just for Black people itself, but for people that's going through the same things. Um, when it's not in Resurrection Study Group, among other things, we created our own community service organization and butchered existing ones and made them serve the community. Shout out to that. So we about to wrap up, folks, man. We are like 27 minutes past our scheduled time. We started a little late, man. We definitely gonna get into part 2, man. But we had a chance today to have one of our big bros and one of our young elders in the building. And we talked a lot, man. We got into like Marcy a little bit and growing up in that mindset. We talked a little bit about the documentary, We Came to H.O.L.L.A. Everybody make sure you zone out and get that on H.O.L.L.A TV. We Came to H.O.L.L A and what that meant from seeing that the first time. And then we had a conversation about, you know, the non-traditional approach to social and criminal justice. We kept our spirit of one of our elders and ancestors, Eddie, in the building, but we also thought about Attica. We thought about George Jackson and Jonathan Jackson, and we thought about the context that created the non-traditional approach. And we learned a lot of stories from BlackGod about how he came in contact with that and kept sharing that and kept teaching us around, you know, the basic question and what the 5 R's are and how they relate to healing and how they relate to transformation and how that translated into a youth development program called the Resurrection Study Group. That is definitely, you know, like, you know, the forefathers of like the non-traditional approach to youth development that H.O.L.L A stand on. So we're looking forward to part 2 to get to more into like that connection between the Resurrection and the study group. I'm gonna pass it back to BlackGod to say final words, and end with a creed. Also, I'm on tomorrow with Divine and Rap. We're gonna be talking about freeing our elders and spazzing on Governor Como with some healing justice and some truth. So Devon, send that information in the chat, man. Please follow us tomorrow. We're gonna post it on our Facebook, so you'll see it at some point tonight, tomorrow, where we at with supporting Rap. I'm gonna pass it back to Devon. Back to BlackGod to end us with the creed, and then we go into a couple of songs before we wrap up.
Just want to say thank everybody for staying in with us this whole period. A-Rock, Alex, all of y'all, my baby. We're gonna end with the creed, the Resurrection Creed. We start every group of the Resurrection Study Group with the creed, and we end each group with the creed. This is to get us into the mindset of our people, our struggle, and most important, of the work that we have to do. We usually start off the creed, we say resurrection 3 times, and then we go into it, all right? So I'm going to start off. Resurrection.
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 We must reach inside our souls, teach our children to respect themselves, teach our children to respect others, teach our children to respect our past, teach our children, but most important of all, we must relearn how to respect ourselves. They cannot fight nor kill that which they cannot see. They cannot see respect as they do not respect the most important of all, life. So, oh man, I just messed up, man.
Take it back. Take your time. We here. We need all that. Take your time. Don't worry about it. You can take that. You can start that over if you need to.
Yeah, I got to start that over. Resurrection. resurrection, when all the tears have been cried by all the mothers whose babies have died, we will still not have learned what we need to know the most, ourselves. We have not learned we have not learned what all our martyrs like Marcus, Martin, Malcolm, Marley, and countless others have seemingly died in vain to teach us, that we are a strong race of people who need to get inside ourselves, not outside in the white light of the material world, but inside the black void from which we all came. We need to seek ourselves. We are not in the televisions. We are not in the newspapers. We are not in the magazines. We are not on Wall Street, nor in the business of ourselves. Our children are dying, and we are still crying. But tears cannot save. Tears cannot teach. Tears cannot shelter us from the most dangerous thing to us, ourselves. We must reach inside our souls. Teach our children to respect themselves. Teach our children to respect others. Teach our children to respect our past. But most important of all, we must relearn how to respect ourselves. They cannot fight nor kill that which they cannot see. They cannot see respect as they do not respect the most important of all creations, life. And so we have once again been left with the responsibility of educating ourselves. The spirituals are past being enough. Laughter and dance are definitely not enough. And the tears have been way too much. Wake up and realize time is now. We and only we have to help ourselves. Resurrection.
Resurrection. We're
It.
going to close on that note there. We play one more song called Hopelessness, and then we out of here. Thanks a lot, BlackGod. Check us out on Instagram and Facebook for part 2 coming soon. We out of here.
What you know about hopelessness? What you know about hopelessness? Watch your back, cause everywhere you turn is hopelessness. Turning everything beautiful into some hopelessness. Our whole lives we've been running from hopelessness. Yeah. What you know about hopelessness? Watch your back, cause everywhere you turn is hopelessness. Turning everything beautiful into some hopelessness. Our whole lives we've been running from hopelessness. Yeah. I'm running, 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 I'm running from hopelessness. Watch your back, cause everywhere you turn. Watch your back, cause everywhere you turn. Watch your back, cause everywhere you turn. I'm running, 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 I'm running from hopelessness. Watch your back, cause everywhere you turn. Watch your back, cause everywhere you turn. Watch your back, cause everywhere you turn. Hopscotching with hopes since first sermons I wrote. Moms was singing lullabies, wrote me some books.
What's up, Vic?
Was definitely on key, but didn't know me no notes. Didn't know me no posts, just motivational quotes. Shit is hard to digest when it's burned on your throat, folks.
Hopelessness.
Rhymes with
When your jokes go.
been knocked down one bounce off
To the ropes go.
life came blow by blow. Like you ain't know that
This
this
hope
hope's just some
shit
shit I
I
know.
know.
East Oak,
Put the name on it.
is a town, so
Let's go
with
get
some
some
cream
cream
on
on
it
it.
when it's hot. Flames
Good night,
on it,
people.
with no shame on it. When your hope look less like it got a frame.
We was hopeless,
Back against the wall,
but we was focused.
run up on us, heat is smoking, Lord knows
We
we was
was
home. I had to
go.
go. We had that work out on the road.
Whoa.
All of the snow, gold, out for power, shit like the show.
Whoa.
We at the top of the list. Cops is watching, stopping the kids.
Whoa.
Stay low when you hop in the whip. You could dodge this cop and sit. This shit real, my G. Got coke, got crack, got pills, my G. Gotta feed them kids. How you supposed to
Feel my G.
we had to get it. Up on we
Holla in the building. Shout out to YOC. We came to heal. Good night, everybody. Make sure you watch that documentary. Running, I'm running, I'm running, I'm running. Who's running from hopelessness? Who's still running from hopelessness? What you know about running from hopelessness? Finding your hope. Finding that spirit in you. Finding that God in you. That connects to the other gods in the universe. The other elements in the universe. You got to find your hope.
been there, done that. We ain't going back to being in prison again. For reflections and resistance is the only way that I'm killing them. Turned up in gorilla troops, but you see us wearing healing suits. We ain't really in the interviews, but the whole squad is defending you. All our families been colonized, all our families been traumatized. And here's the feeling, the blood spilling.
The report back.
Back to the basics. I'm like Morpheus.
The report back. Can you might make sense? Talk to him, Westner. You got the question. Lesson. We passing down lessons. That's our plan. Putting my best in. Where my best in means. Putting lessons. Talk to him, Westner. I'm thinking about how I'm investing ways we build big blessings. Talk to them. I'm thinking about how I'm projecting bad times, traumatized. Talk to them. Talk to them. Who's running from hopelessness? Who's running towards healing? There we go. If you ain't running from hopelessness and running towards healing, you ain't hurt. We ain't just running from hopelessness because it's fun, because we like to exercise. We trying to get back to our blackness. We trying to get back to you. Said it before. Talk to him, A-Rock. You stripping them off. What's mine and what's yours? Right through, man, I'm shaking it down. Man, these walls you built up, man, we breaking it down. Yeah, these tricks and these lies, man, we pissed right now. Yeah, eyes wide open, yeah, we see you clown. See you from the justice to human, from nothing to pin and pursuing. The creed, the promos are going. I'm running, I'm running, I'm running. I'm holding, I'm talking, I'm coping. I'm living, I'm focused, I'm open. This shit is real, but I never. All right, we out of here, folks, man. Let's make sure we save this video. We lost our last video, man. Peace, everybody. We back on again for sure with A-Rock on the 29th. But we might get another show sometime this week with one of our youth organizers. Look out for Facebook, for Instagram. Mashley closing us out. And we gonna win, you heard? Peace.